Earlier today, Jay Inslee said that your tweets encouraging
Who said
liberation.
this?
Jay Inslee said your tweets encouraging liberation in Michigan, Minnesota, Virginia were fomenting rebellion. Wondering how that squares with the sober and methodical guidance that you issued yesterday.
Well, I think we do have a sobering guidance, but I think some things are too tough. And if you look at some of the states you just mentioned, it's too tough, not only relative to this, but what they've done in Virginia with respect to the Second Amendment is just a horrible thing. They did a horrible thing, the governor. And he's a governor under a cloud to start off with. So when you see what he said about the Second Amendment, when you see what other states have done, no, I think I feel very comfortable. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to be clear, when you talk about these states, Michigan, Minnesota, Virginia, do you think that they should lift their stay-at-home orders, or can you talk sort
No,
of...
but I think elements of what they've done are too much. I mean, it's just too much. You know the elements because I've already said, but certainly a Second Amendment and Second Amendment having to do with the state of Virginia, what they've done in Virginia is just incredible. Okay, please.
Sir, are you concerned, though, that people coming out in protest are going to spread COVID to other people? They're congregating in ways that health experts have said they should not.
No, these are people expressing their views. I see where they are and I see the way they're working. They seem to be very responsible people to me. But it's, they've been treated a little bit rough. Please, Linda.
Thanks, Mr. President. I'm curious about some more of the dynamics we might see as the country begins reopening, as you put it, kind of like a puzzle. So as you've mentioned, we have states where we're already seeing their curves begin to flatten, but then there are others like Florida or more rural parts of the country where they aren't projected to peak for weeks or even months. So can you talk a little bit about some of the difficulties that those later peaking states might face if they need to stay locked down for longer, even as other places around them are starting to open back up?
Well, we're seeing great numbers in almost every state. We're seeing big drops. We're really seeing, in terms of beds, the numbers we have to look at are the beds being occupied, people going, which is essentially people going in. That means that you have fewer people that are sick, fewer people that feel they have to go to a hospital, and those numbers are dropping really precipitously. So I think that we're just seeing a lot of good signs. Now, a place like New York, New Jersey, and certain parts of Louisiana. Louisiana has been incredible lately when you look at that drop. That drop has really been great. Michigan's had a hard time, but it's starting to do well. So I just think Illinois is another one. You look at some of the numbers, but everyone is dropping, and they're dropping rather quickly. We don't have any hotspot that's developed where all of a sudden you say, well, other than we did have a meatpacking plant or two where incredibly we had some, you saw the number was rather incredible. It took place in that plant. People could ask about that. I wonder who owned that company. It was a weird situation, but generally speaking, it's been very good. The numbers have been really improving greatly. Please, in the back.
Thank you, Mr. President. U.S. intelligence is saying this week that the coronavirus likely came from a level 4 lab in Wuhan. There's also another report that the NIH, under the Obama administration in 2015, gave that lab $3.7 million in a grant. Why would the U.S. give a grant like that to China?
The Obama administration gave them a grant of $3.7 million. I've been hearing about that. And we've instructed that if any grants are going to that area, we're looking at it literally about an hour ago and also early in the morning. We will end that grant very quickly, but it was granted quite a while ago. They were granted a substantial amount of money. We're going to look at it and take a look, but I understand it was a number of years ago, right?
So you are.
When did you hear was the grant was made?
2015.
2015. Who was president then? I wonder. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. President, we know negotiations are underway for the next round of funding for small businesses.
Yeah.
If tens of billions of dollars went in a matter of days the first time, will this next relief package be enough?
Well, I think it will certainly, it's going to get us to a point that's going to be rather beautiful. We think that that will be the point, and it could be they want more, but maybe at a certain point we're going to stop. It's been a tremendous success. It's been executed flawlessly. SBA's done a very good job, but the banks have done a great job, whether it was Bank of America or Wells Fargo. The the community banks have been incredible. I think we had over 4,000 community banks. A lot of people didn't know you had that many banks, but 4,000 community banks, they gave the money out. It's so organized, and it's been such a great program. And so essentially we're waiting for $250 billion. The Democrats are refusing to do it. This is money that essentially is going to the workers. It's going to keep these companies whole, restaurants and a lot of great companies. And it's a small amount of money relative to what it represents, because it represents small businesses. It represents them staying in business. And, you know, when you look at it, people don't know, small businesses represent approximately 50% of the power of our business enterprises. It's not all the big monster businesses that you read about every day. It's all of these small businesses when added. It's something that should be approved by the Democrats. The Republicans want it badly, and the people want it very badly.
If I could just follow up on that, nearly 10% of the loans that were given out were for $5 million, but some small business owners say they can't even get a loan for $100,000. Is that acceptable?
Well, they would get that, but they have to approve it. Nobody knew it was going to be this successful. Don't forget, when you say the money's gone, it's been a tremendous success as a program. People they really want it. And some people won't be able to get there, keep their business open unless they get that money. It's been a tremendous success. It's been executed flawlessly. It's been, I mean, with few exceptions, it's really been good. And I think the Democrats are going to do it. Look, Nancy Pelosi, she's away on vacation or something, and she should come back. She should come back and get this done. I don't know why she's not coming back. The fact is, she's not doing her job, and there's nothing unusual about that for her.
And Leader McCarthy said they're now considering also adding more funding for hospitals included in
So they
this.
are thinking about hospitals, and hospitals, well, hospitals are a good thing. Hospitals have been decimated by this. You know, they've given up their business, which is good because they did the right thing in order to take care of the COVID-19. And no, hospitals, I'm with that all the way. They want to add hospitals. We could also add it into phase 4 if we do a phase 4. Phase 4 would be hopefully infrastructure. A lot of people are talking about the best thing we could do for this country would be the payroll tax cut that I've been suggesting. A lot of Democrats like it, believe it or not, the payroll tax cut. And Art Laffer, who's tremendous, he's a tremendous, in fact, he recently got the Presidential Medal of Freedom, economist. He was with Ronald Reagan, and he looks like he's 25 years old, but I think he might be a little bit older than that. He looks so great. But Art Laffer said the single best thing you can do is the payroll tax cut. And I would just about agree with that, and I'd like to see that. I'm not sure that we're going to get that, but I think that's something that could be done. It's simple. It's really good for both the company that employs these people and for the people that are employed. So we're going to see whether that happens or not. The payroll, I put it out there, the payroll tax cut would be a tremendous incentive for this country. Steve?
China now says its coronavirus death toll in Wuhan is 50% higher,
Yep.
up to about 4,000. Does that sound like a credible number to you?
Well, you know, when I listen to the press every night saying we have the most, we don't have the most in the world deaths. The most in the world has to be China. It's a massive country. It's gone through a tremendous problem with this, a tremendous problem, and they must have the most. So today I saw they announced that essentially they're doubling up on the numbers, and that's only in Wuhan. They're not talking about outside of Wuhan. So it is what it is, Steve. It is what it is. What a sad state of affairs.
Investigation into whether the virus escaped from this lab in Wuhan, how active is that, and when do you expect to
We're
hear?
looking at it. A lot of people are looking at it. It seems to make sense. They talk about a certain kind of bat, but that bat wasn't in that area. If you can believe this, that's what they're down to now is bats. But that bat is not in that area. That bat wasn't sold at that wet zone. It wasn't sold there. That bat is 40 miles away. So a lot of strange things are happening, but there is a lot of investigation going on, and we're going to find out. All I can say is wherever it came from China, in whatever form, 184 countries now are suffering because of it. And it's too bad, isn't it? And it could have been solved very easily. When it was just starting, it could have been solved really very easily. Yeah, please, Vivek.
Thank you, sir. So about the 80 million payments that have gone out that you mentioned, you said that less than 1% have had snafus, but that could be 800,000 snafus. So we've also seen
Well, I'm
reports.
just saying, it's less than 1%, and the snafus are very minor. And
You're not
they were
talking about
fixed. No,
massive
excuse me.
numbers of dead people who've received.
No, they were 80 million
of
payments went
people.
out over a period of a few days. And they caught certain mistakes that they made, but this is a tiny amount of mistakes. I can tell you mistakes that were made in government where wrong countries were signed, okay? 80 million, this has been a tremendous success. And any mistake that was made, they've been caught. And it's less than 1%. That's a very good percentage. I can tell you for government. I mean, how about the Obama website, the Obamacare website, where they spent $5 billion on building a website that you could have built for peanuts? Okay.
If money went up to deceased people, is the government going to get that back?
Yeah, anything that was sent out, it's like sometimes you send a check to somebody wrong. Sometimes people are listed, they die, and they get a check. That can happen. You're talking about, I guess the number is about 80 million people. Yeah, sure, we'll get that back. Everything we're going to get back. But it's a tiny amount. They've done a fantastic job. This was done in a matter of a few days. Yeah.
Your campaign said today that they are planning on resuming rallies before the election. Is there a timeline that you're looking at? Would it be restricted to certain states? Have you thought about how that would work?
Well, I hope we can do rallies. It's great for the country. It's great spirit. It's great for a lot of things. To me, it's a tremendous way of getting the word out. If you look at our success rate, we've had tremendous success. We win where we have rallies, including endorsements of candidates. Our success rate is, I think, unparalleled. There's nothing like it. So I certainly hope we can have rallies. We'll find out. I don't like the rallies where we're sitting like you're sitting. I mean, you got many reporters outside trying to get into this room, and I come in, I'm looking at this room, and I see all this. It loses a lot of flavor. It loses, to me, a lot of flavor. But I hope we're going to have rallies. I think they're going to be bigger than ever. I will say this, the rallies that we're having, until we had to stop with regard to the problem that we had here, the rallies were bigger than they were, I think even substantially bigger. We go into the biggest arena and we turn away 20, 30,000 people sometimes. And in one case, I think they said in New Jersey, we had 175,000 people show up for an arena that holds 9,000 people. And they showed up. And the reporters even reported that. That was almost shocking to me. But I hope we can resume rallies because I think they're an important part of politics, actually.
Mr. President, under your reopening plan, some workers can go back to work in phase 1, but schools cannot reopen until phase 2. Many parents don't have an option to work from home. So how can you get businesses back up and running as long as schools are closed?
Well, I think the businesses are going to, and I think now we've given the businesses a real jolt, a real positive jolt. They're able to keep their employees. You know, without the employees, if the employees leave that area, if they leave, you know, who knows where they're going, or if they get another job, maybe someplace else, you're not going to have the same business. So we gave them money to hold their employees. They're going to do that. We hope we can do $250 billion more. It's absolutely so inexpensive compared to what it represents, and we hope that's going to happen. But I really think, look, you see it with the stock market. The market was up 700 or 800 points today. And if you would have told me that we would have a virus, the likes of which this world has not seen since 1917, which was the Spanish flu, where anywhere from 75 to 100 million people were killed, and that we'd have a stock market that's not far below its all-time high. And it's starting to get a little low. You know, then you had a 1,000-point increase and a 1,200-point increase. So now we have a stock market that's at a point where it's not very far away from where it was, and we've gone through a closed, literally a closed country. Remember this also. I mean, we have had a closed economy. We had the best economy anywhere in the world by far. We had the best economy we've ever had. And remember this, the dollar is very strong. And strong dollars are overall very good. But it does cause problems. It's harder to sell outside of the country, et cetera, et cetera. It's a little harder for manufacturers. Sometimes it's a lot harder. Everybody wants to invest in our country. Everybody wants, and you know, we're paying almost zero in interest, like in some cases zero. We've never had that before. People want the safety of our country. But if you would have told me that a market was where it is today, and today we had almost, I guess, more than a 700-point increase, and we're at a point which is, you know, It's not what it was, but it's not that far off. I would have told you that's got to be an impossibility. The reason that is because there is a great pent-up demand. This country's going to come back, and it's going to come back strong. We have to get rid of the virus. We've got to open up our country. We're going to open it up in quadrants. We're going to open it up as states. Some of the states should get together, and they should work on their own borders and everything, because you don't want to have people pouring through the border of a state that isn't infected, and you have people coming perhaps outside. That's one of the reasons I was asking Tony 2 days ago about masks. Well, why in Wyoming or Montana would they have to wear masks? The numbers are very good. And the reason, if somebody comes from outside, which is very severe, but it's, again, and it's going to be up to them. It's a recommendation, but we'll see. But if you would have told me how well we're doing after we went through the worst event of its kind since 1917, it's pretty amazing. Question,
Mr.
please.
President, about childcare, though, millions of Americans aren't sure how they can go back to work if schools are closed. How can they have their kids
Schools
taken
will
care
be
of?
open
Is
too,
your
very
government
soon.
considering something in addition to helping employees stay employed
I
to
think
help
that's-
them take care of their
yeah,
kids?
Good question. I think the schools are going to be open soon. I think a lot of governors are already talking about schools being opened. And we do have to take care of our seniors, because we've learned a lot about this disease. We've learned, call it a disease. We've learned a lot about this plague. And we have to take care of our seniors. We're going to take care of a lot of people. But I think the schools are going to be open sooner rather than later. And I understand, and I've spoken, some governors are already thinking about getting the schools open. I have a young boy who goes to school. I'd like to see him go to school. As good as home is, it's very nice, but we'd like to see him go to school. Please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I agree with that point. I would like to know about some of these areas that you would like to open up, some of these quadrants. You singled out Virginia, Michigan. They don't have a decline in cases yet. Yet you tweeted out today that you'd like to liberate them.
Well, they're going to have soon, but they're very, what they've done is very powerful in terms of, I think, you could get the same result out of doing a little bit less. What they've done to some people is very unfair. In Virginia, I'm going above and beyond what we're talking about with this horrible plague. They want to take their guns away, okay? They want to take their guns away. That's the Second Amendment. That's Virginia. You have a governor who really, I guess he should be under siege. He seems not to be. If he were a Republican, he'd be under siege. But he seems to have escaped something that was pretty bad, including what he said about birth, including what he said about many different things. But he wants to if you take a look at what's going on in Virginia, they want to take away Second Amendment rights, and that's what they want to do. So when you talk about liberate, or if you talk about a liberation, you could certainly look at Virginia as one. Go ahead. Anybody else?
Mr. President.
Which states are ready to reopen in your mind, and how soon?
Well, I don't want to go. I want to leave the governors make that decision. We're watching very closely. If we see something happening bad that we think is wrong, we're going to come down very strong on that. Very, very strong. The federal government has a lot to say. We have a lot to say beyond what anyone understands. And we think, and I've gotten to know many of the governors, many Democrats too. It's Republicans, and I knew the Republicans. I knew some of the Democrats, but I got to know a lot of them. I think it's going to be in the hands of a lot of good people. I think a lot of good people are looking at this, and they want to do what's right, Steve.
The Vice President is traveling soon, I think tomorrow, to Colorado. When are you going to be in a position to travel again?
Well, they'd rather not have me travel. I think I've been in the White House, I don't know, for months. I don't know what it is, but it's for months. Other than I did leave to say goodbye to our beautiful ship, right? The Comfort, as it left Virginia, where it got out of dry dock, it got out of maintenance very early. It was supposed to be there for 4 weeks. It was there for a few days. Literally, we got it up to New York. I mean, they didn't need it like. Well, I wouldn't say we hoped. I'm glad they didn't need it. They didn't need it. That was a good thing. They didn't need the convention center, 2,500 beds, or depending on your definition, 2,900. We ultimately converted it to COVID. The Army Corps of Engineers and FEMA, the job they did was incredible. But that's a sign that they're making progress in New York. If you look at that, we built it. It was ready. It's there now. It's ready. We converted it to COVID. It wasn't supposed to be for that, at the request of, frankly, our side. Then ultimately we converted it, but there is much less demand. That's such a good thing. I mean, I'm not complaining about that. I think it's a great, that means New York's making progress.
Is it important to you that Vice President is going tomorrow?
He's going to Colorado? I think he's going to the Air Force to make the commencement, right? Yes, sir. Oh, I think it's great. I think it's great. If he's going to make the commencement, I hear they're going to have a very spread out crowd.
Yes, sir.
They're going to be, I will say, they are going to be socially very good. They're going to be very far apart. That'll be very interesting. I think I'm going to watch that one. No, they're going to be, they're going to have a good spread, a good distance apart. I spoke to Mike about it. No, I think making the commencement speech, I'm doing it at West Point, which I look forward to. I did it last year at Air Force. I did it at Annapolis. I did it at the Coast Guard Academy. And I'm doing it at West Point. And I assume they've got it. And I understand they'll have distancing. They'll have some big distances, so it'll be very different than it ever looked. Do I like the look? No, I don't. And eventually, next year, they'll have a commencement which will be like it's been, like when people like this, our great admiral has done such a great job, when he graduated from where he graduated, me too, we're nice and tight. And that's going to happen again. I don't want people to think that this is going to be like this forever, but for a period of time, we're going to have to keep it that way. That includes baseball games and football games and other things. But eventually, as this virus goes away, it's going to be better and better. Director, it's going to be better and better, and we're going to get our lives back to the way they were. You know, one thing that bothers me, a couple of restaurateurs called, and they said, I mean, sir, I barely made a living with 150 seats. Now, if I do what they want me to do, I'll be down to 25 seats. And I can't. I said, yeah, but you're not going to be there forever. And he didn't really know that. He thought that they were going to take 150 seats, move it down to 25 to 50 seats, depending on the way he laid it out. He said, don't worry about it. Eventually, you're going to be back to the scene that you used to have, which was, look, I could tell you about, and I'm not going to do it because I didn't want to bring it up, but I could tell you about events that took place. And I said things like, you'll never do that again, or you'll never do this again, or I don't even want to mention the events. I don't want to mention what you're supposed to be doing. Because, and you know, one of them was so horrible. I said, a certain industry will be out of business, never happen again. 2 weeks later, it was like nothing ever happened. Hopefully, we get rid of this. We have tremendous talent up here and all over, including governors, including local governments, state governments. I look forward to the time, to me, when we can really normalize. But normalizing is being back to where we were. Yeah, please, go ahead.
Mr. President, some of your allies are calling for China to be stripped as host of the 2022 Olympics. Wondering what you make of that. Is that something that you would consider, or?
So I just made a deal with China where they're going to put in $250 billion of product. They're going to be buying 50 from 40 to 50 billion in farm. I want to see what's happening with China. I want to see how they're doing on it. Are they fulfilling the deal, the transaction? We have a lot of discussions going on with China. Let me just put it this way. I'm not happy, okay? I'm not happy. And I spoke to them, and this could have been shut down a long time ago. They knew it, and we couldn't get in, and in all fairness, World Health couldn't get in, and that's why I wish they took a different stance. They took a very pathetic stance and a very weak stance, but they say they couldn't get in. But ultimately, they got in. They got in much sooner than anybody, but they didn't report what was happening. They didn't report what was happening inside of China. No, I'm not happy with China. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, I wanted to ask Dr. Fauci, could you address these suggestions or concerns that this virus was somehow man-made, possibly came out of a laboratory in China? You studied this virus. What are the prospects of that?
There was a study recently that we can make available to you where a group of highly qualified evolutionary virologists looked at the sequences there and the sequences in bats as they evolve, and the mutations that it took to get to the point where it is now is totally consistent with a jump of a species from an animal to a human. So, I mean, the paper will be available. I don't have the authors right now, but we can make that available too.
Follow-up, sir, on the protests that we've seen of people wanting the economies to open. Does that concern you, though, as a health expert, when you see folks congregate, and are you worried if that's encouraged?
Well, I mean, I'm looking at it from a public health standpoint. I certainly can understand the frustration of people, but my main role in the task force is to make recommendations to protect the health and the safety of the American people. And I would hope that people understand that that's the reason why we're doing what we're doing, and hopefully we'll put an end to this.
Thank you.
And I will say this, I'm very, very satisfied with the decision we made, listening to experts, listening to my gut, the feeling of the vice president, and really many others when we put it all together. Look, if we didn't do what we did at the time, we could have lost more than 2 million people. I really believe that. I could show you charts of other places that gave it a shot and they're not doing well. And I would show it to you right now. I don't want to embarrass anybody, but they gave that a shot. That's an automatic. I mean, everybody would say, let's do that, until they sit down and start thinking. And we could have lost more than 2 million people. We could have lost more than 2 million. Could have been much more than that, by the way. We have one that says from 1.6 to 2.2, but it could have really been more than that. But I looked at one country in particular, that is using the herd mentality and not working out very well. Now, with all of that being said, we have to get back to work. We'll be crossing lines very soon in many cases. In some cases, we're well on the way down. In other cases, we're right at the top and heading down. We're heading in the right direction. I saw some numbers from New Jersey, which was having a very tough time at starting. He's doing a terrific job, the governor, Phil Murphy, starting to get some really good signs. I looked at some of the New York numbers. They're starting to get, they've been devastated, obviously, but some really good things are starting to happen. So if we would have done something different, first of all, it would not have been sustainable. You would have had people, they would have been furious at you and me and everybody up here. It would not have been sustainable. Because you look at some of the hospitals, as an example, a certain hospital right near where I grew up in Queens, and you had body bags all over the floor of that hospital. You know the one I'm talking about. All over the floor of the hospital. Now multiply that times 12 or 15, because that's the kind of numbers you're talking about, 12 or 15. And it would not have been, there would have been an insurrection. Nobody would have understood that. Whereas right now, nobody can be blamed, and there is no blame. We're all in a situation that was caused, that should have been solved long ago. It could have been solved probably very easily. Look, this is a tough enemy, but probably very easily if a certain country did what they should have done. And we're just starting to learn those facts. But what we did was the right thing. What we did was the right thing. With that being said, we want to get back, and we're going to be opening up states. They're being opened by very capable people. It's also point of sale, as they say in a different business. It's the point they'll be able to look at that, where the testing is taking place. We're going to help them with the testing. We've developed some tremendous tests over the last little while, and we're going to work with the states, so we're going to help them. But they know every inch of land in their states. I watched the governor of Arkansas, Asa. You saw that. I thought he was terrific. I watched the governor of Oklahoma over the weekend being interviewed. He was terrific. They've done it a little bit differently, and they've done it tight, and they've done it strong, and they were very prepared, and they have more beds than they needed, and that's a good thing. But I've seen some very, very good things, and I think you're going to have some very positive events taking place over a very short period of time. And I think with that, we'll see you tomorrow. But really, this has been a situation where a lot of great people have been involved and a lot of great decisions have been made. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
So there will be a briefing.
Can we follow up with a couple questions?
We do definitely follow with the administration.